Hi guys, I'm back after exams. I passed, by the way, and I'm once again here to explain an archetype, also called a class of champions, so you yourself can choose what you want to play and practice. In this video I will be going over the top lane specialist class and its 3 subclasses. Marksmen, controllers, also called control mages, and enchanters are the 3 different subclasses in this class. Specialists are champions that are not designed to be classical top laners, but somehow make it work anyway. Some of these champions were even originally designed to be played in other lanes, but ended up in top lane during the many seasons. I would typically not recommend a new player as specialist, because they are almost as tough micro-wise and arguably even harder macro-wise than a fighter, while being less tanky and therefore more punishable than a fighter. But if you want to play a champion that makes the enemy laner's life miserable, then a specialist is for you. Little disclaimer, I am not responsible for your many losses if you choose to pick up a specialist after this video. Marksmen are ranged auto-attack focused champions that serve as a source of constant DPS, since their damage are based on attack moves rather than abilities. Champions in the top lane marksman class are Teemo, Quinn, Urgot, and Kayle. Kayle is here even though she starts as a melee champion. She turns into a ranged character after level 6, and she is exactly like the other champions in this category after level 6. Also, notable honorable mentions must go to Lucian and Vayne, that can go top, but they are primarily played in other lanes. I of course also must mention Jace here, but if you have not seen my top lane fighter video, you can check that out after this video to know why I put him in the fighter class and not in the marksman class. Marksmen are great characters if you want a late game scaling, damage dealing champion, but you must be aware of the many shortcomings a top lane marksman have. They usually serve as great lane bully champions, and they are great for making the enemy's life miserable under tower, but if you fall behind, the enemy will snowball heavily upon you and keep killing you over and over because of your squishiness. It is important to notice that Kayle and Teemo usually build ability power, even though you typically associate auto-attack focused marksmen with attack damage and critical strike chance heavy builds. And while the meta is sure to shift, Urgot does usually have more of a tanky build path than the other marksmen. Controllers, also called control mages, are characters with high damage and terrain control. This terrain control is in form of a big zone of usually high damage that either stuns or slows enemies. I personally call them "fuck you, you aren't walking through here" zones, because enemies are naturally inclined not to walk into these zones because of the huge amount of damage they'll take. This type of champion is usually played in the mid lane and is also called control mages, but the top lane has a few individual champions in this category who aren't mages, and therefore I call them controllers. Champions in the controller class are Rumble, Kennen, Vladimir, Gangplank, and Illaoi. The obvious ones that are different are Gangplank and Illaoi. Besides Gangplank's AD build, you can obviously see why he belongs as an AD control mage with his huge AoE slows and damage threat. Illaoi is really the odd one out, but to be honest, if you put aside her Bruce-like build, she does provide slows, and not to mention the, in my opinion, scariest fuck you zone in the entire game. If we say that marksmen are usually bot laners, controllers are usually mid laners, but the champions I have mentioned so far are individual champions in these archetypes that have found success in the top lane and are usually mainly played in top lane nowadays. They are weird, different top laners, but they are still top laners, if that makes sense. Enchanters are by that logic support who have found success in the top lane. However, none of the enchanters who can be played top has ever had top as their primary role. They are more, well, I guess they kind of work top 2 kind of top laners. Enchanters who are more or less always effective and able to be played in the top lane are Lulu, Soraka and Karma. while other enchanters that have previously been able to play top, and who knows, they might be able to be played in the top lane in the future again, are Sona, Iron and Cillian. Enchanters have the distinct advantage of being able to buy cheaper and more gold efficient support items while getting the income of a top laner, making them reach their item power spikes earlier than most other champions. In the mid to late game, they function exactly like a normal enchanter support would do, providing heals, shields and peel for your team. The only real difference being that a top lane enchanter has a higher level and more items than a support enchanter. You should generally only pick an enchanter top lane if your team has tankiness or engage in other roles like your jungle or support role, or if you want a disengage or protection team composition. The last one relies heavily on your bot or mid laner to carry you though. Enchanters also suffer the same disadvantages the other specialists have, but one advantage they do have is that they tilt the enemy, because who wants to be the guy who got solo killed by a Soraka or Lulu? I've already mentioned this a couple of times during the video, but specialists are usually lane bullies, or they scale great into the late game, sometimes even both. You get to have the experience of playing a mid lane, support or bot lane champion versus some dumb run at you champions in the top lane. Pick these guys up if winning lane doesn't have to be getting 11 kills, a tower and being up 50 CS, but if winning lane means making the enemy laner useless and tilted because of your annoying champion. I mean seriously, it feels so good winning lane as one of these fuckers. But remember, everyone, even your own team, will hate you for it. I mean, there is a reason why ranged top laners get called pussy champions. Well, if played correctly, something that a lot of people actually struggle with on specialists, they counter tanks, because they can scale great into the late game for free because of tanks' low threat in the early game. Theoretically, specialists also shit on juggernauts, but again only if played correctly, otherwise the specialist will feed big time. Specialists also beat some obstructors, but can struggle versus some individual champions. But specialists generally get destroyed by fighters because fighters' high mobility makes them difficult to keep at arm's length, and as previously stated, you are usually quite squishy.